10/25/2019. As we transition from the great age of Pisces to Aquarius, more and more people are opening their minds and accepting the language of the stars. I'm diving deep as a Scorpio would to explore more about myself and others around me. Scorpio Sun. I came here to show myself and others that you must lose yourself in the undercurrent of life to spark creativity, that you must drown to discover new limits about yourself, that greatness can be found in dark, uncharted waters, that it's okay to hit the ocean floor. Scorpios are the resilient alchemists of the zodiac that are brave enough to tap into transformative witchcraft that others dare not to try. Never underestimate a Scorpio, as we are the rulers of the underworld that many other signs never fully experience. Gemini Moon. My soul craves for more intellectual conversations and messages. I value learning and want to gain knowledge in numerous fields to be a Jane of all trades. Capricorn Rising. My vehicle appears to be well maintained and in order. I am a systematic wizard. I enjoy building things from the ground up. I am a connector of people, places, and things. I love working hard. At 28, I will be certified to read birth charts. More to come with Ruby Jade rituals. So this was pulled from a post on my personal Instagram account when I first let my community know that I was heading down a new career path and that I was going to create my own company. And so here I am actually selling people on what type of reader I am. That I am a Scorpio Sun, a Gemini Moon, and a Capricorn Rising. Those are my big three. And so because of those three points and luminaries, because the Sun and Moon and luminaries and the Rising is a point, I'm telling people what it would be like to book a reading with me. So it is an elevator pitch. And I don't know if anybody knows what an elevator pitch is listening, but it is really what you think it is. So it's about kind of putting yourself in a person's shoes that is about to get on an elevator. Let's say it's a 90-second ride up to the top floor, and that's where you're wanting to go. You jump in the elevator, and what do you know? Your biggest idol, biggest mentor, the CEO of the company that you want to work with is also riding the elevator. And it's just you two. And you finally have this chance, this shot, this luck in your life to introduce yourself, tell them your why, what you're good at, and what you want to do maybe in the future. So you have 90 seconds to sell yourself. That's what an elevator pitch is. An elevator pitch, or it can sometimes be referred to as an elevator speech or elevator statement, is a short description of an idea, product, or company that explains the concept in a way such that any listener can understand it in a short period of time. And a lot of the time, when you go and interview for a job position, you do start off the interview with an elevator pitch. So elevator pitches are totally associated with one's professional life, and that's where we're at in the course. Welcome to the Phoenix module of Rise from the Ashes. This is the third and final module of the course. So congratulations, you've made it this far, and we have a lot to learn here. So definitely put your thinking caps on and take notes. Whatever you've been doing throughout this entire course, keep doing it. It will pay off. So what is a phoenix? As you have seen, each module has, a practical title, but then also like a mystical title. And the title for this particular module, the mystical title for this particular module is Phoenix, the Phoenix. So the phoenix is an immortal bird associated with Greek mythology. Greek mythology is obviously very connected to astrology, and it is this bird that regenerates on a cycle. It's a cycle of death and rebirth, and it's always, going through this cycle. So you could also just say it's being born again and again and again. So that's why it is this immortal bird. It obviously doesn't truly exist in our world, but it definitely has a lot of symbolism, and it's associated with the sun, actually. Let's see. But a phoenix is just something that's actually very thought about, like, in a lot of different cultures and a lot of different ways. But actually, even though it's associated with the sun, the phoenix is actually a part of the Scorpio story. So that is why I wanted to name this module the Phoenix. Okay, so although Scorpio is most commonly represented by the scorpion, this mysterious sign actually has a few other animals associated with it, specifically the serpent, eagle, and phoenix. Some astrology accounts, or like other astrologists, do also include the spider, but I think that the most common ones are the serpent, the eagle, the phoenix, and obviously the scorpion. The serpent is used because there's that whole process of a snake or a serpent shedding its old skin, and Scorpio knows, that that's important to do. You had to shed a layer of yourself if you want to, have something new, like new skin form. The eagle is just a very strong bird, so I think that's why the eagle is represented in this Scorpio story. And then we've talked about the phoenix. The scorpion obviously has that stinger attached to its body, and if you've ever looked at the symbol for Scorpio, it does have that stinger as well, where it's like a little arrow at the end of that M. So that's where that is coming from. So the phoenix is this transformational symbol of Scorpio, like the eagle. In ancient times, the phoenix was the symbol of the sun. So there's a little background on, why the eagle is associated with Scorpio as well. That was said to live for 500 years. At the end of its life, it built a funeral pyre and burned in the flames, only to regenerate its progeny from those very flames. Scorpio will burn the worst of themselves to rise from the ashes and become a greater, wiser, stronger being. I love, 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 love that so much. This was all just taken from quick Google searches of what is the story associated with the Phoenix and Scorpio. So after the Ashes module and the Rise module, it's time to step into the Phoenix module of this course. And in this portion of the course, we're going to be going over everything related to one's professional life. So in this module, we'll be learning the following: a values action and networking, redesigning the resume, interviewing and selling, and negotiating and accepting. So let's go ahead and get into the first section of this module. Okay, so let's begin. Let's do it. First section is about values action and networking. Both of them are kind of different. However, they are both in that incubation phase of finding a new job. So it's time to get curious. It's time to get your feet wet. It's time to use those beneficial, I think that's how you say it. Sometimes I just trip up on my words. Those beneficial planets, Venus and Jupiter. So when we understand what signs they're transiting and what houses they're living in the natal chart, and we really, really lean into their beneficence, which is a benefiting planet, that might help you come up with a starting point of where to look for your next career endeavor. So really, really harping on the fact that Jupiter and Venus help you so much. And I think Natalia Benson would be very, very proud of me for teaching my community about this as well, because it's so true and it holds so much wisdom, so much positivity. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move from a negative point in our life to a positive point. So Jupiter and Venus, definitely look at those and understand the sign that they're in and the house that they're in. Okay, so before I started Ruby Jade Rituals, a lot of my friends would tell me, Kenzie, you would be a great therapist. And I heard it like over and over and over again. And I was like starting to like kind of think about it. And, you know, this was even before I decided to get a human development and family studies minor. But like while I was getting that degree, people would say that to me as well. So it kind of made me feel good about my choice and getting that degree. But after college, I really didn't have an experience where I was flexing that muscle. You know, I went into the corporate world, worked for KPMG, MSG, and I just wasn't using that. So to get certified as an astrologist, it really woke up that part of me that has always been inside of me, you know, that Venus and Jupiter hanging out in the 8th house in Virgo. And if you know anything about the 8th house, and I think you know some, I've told you some things about it, it is a psychological house. So yes, therapy was something that was a promising path for me, and it was always there from the time that I took my first breath, because it is in my natal chart, and that has not changed, and it won't really change or show up for another, what is it? I'm gonna let you answer it, but it's about a couple different million years, so that's a hint. So before I knew I was going to start my own company, I actually sought out certain companies that had a therapy focus, and you'll see later in the section how I began those conversations with those particular companies. So I really had already done a values auction when I worked at the MU Career Center as a career specialist at Mizzou, but I kind of redid that activity and then started to network with companies that were aligned with my values. So I love this visual. It says you're not lost, you're here, and I think that that's so true. Like when you are trying to look for a new job, it can feel like, you know, just very, it can feel difficult, and you're kind of feeling like you're alone, and like it's just like you feel a little lost. So that's a very on brand visual for like how it feels to look for a new job. So before jumping into a new position, it is really beneficial to reflect on your values. So a values auction is a great activity to understand the role values have in choosing a career. In a values auction, you find out which careers align with your values. So whether you got fired or laid off or you quit, you are not lost, you are here. And it's time to understand the role values have in choosing a career and which careers align with you. Because there's some out there that don't, and maybe you have worked a career that doesn't align with your values. Maybe it aligned with your parents' values, or your counselor, or your therapist, whoever has kind of directed you in this path, and you know that it's not really for you. So you have to like really sit with yourself and ask yourself, what do you want? Like that one scene in The Notebook where Ryan Gosling is like asking Rachel McAdams, what do you want? What do you want? Which I love Scorpio men actors. I think that they're some of the best. Another shameless plug on Scorpio. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. So there's a lot going on in this page, and I'm going to let you kind of scan it while I kind of go over what it is all about. So it's related to values auction, the exercise, and there's a dysfunctional belief that happiness is having it all. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to find a career that has all of these things. It's just impossible. It's not a true reality. So you have to reframe your headspace, and you have to say, okay, happiness is letting go of what I don't need. So values clarification has been found to be a critical ingredient in career inventions that help individuals with career decision making. And that's coming from Winston and Wright. And it's very, very true. It's all about sitting with yourself and understanding like what makes you tick and what makes you like get excited to get up and work every day. So these are only some, and I'm going to stress the word some, of the values from the MU Career Center's resource on values auction. There's actually another values auction activity that has more, if you can believe it. But this should get you thinking, maybe it's not all about the money. The famous saying, time is money. So maybe flexible hours or an easier commute is something you need to feel valued at your career, at your job. So you don't want to rush this part of your career search. You want to spend a lot of time here and come back to this activity every now and then to check in with yourself, because it might change with whatever type of mood you're in or emotion. And I use mood because, hey, guess what? The low vibration of Scorpio is being moody. And sometimes I've done this activity and my values have changed. So it's really important to do this activity more than once. So think about which values you want. Do you want advancement, flexible hours, on-the-job training, choice of environment, family life, competition, easy commute, contribution to society, diversity, leadership, prestige and status, variety, power and influence, security, rewards, challenge, travel, moral fulfillment, leisure time, benefits, creativity, excitement, independence, compatible coworkers, or high earnings. And just like every natal chart, everybody's values are going to be different. So, yeah. What do you want? Like Ryan Gosling says. You'll see that some of the values are bigger than others, and those are what my values are as someone who's 31 and married and lives in a city that has public transportation. I don't have a car, and has worked very, very long hours and have worked with very unpleasant people. So those are my top values at this point in my life. However, if I were to ever have kids, they might change. Or if something were to happen, it could change. But this is where I'm at in my life right now, and this is the values that I cherish. Now, back in the day, before I met my spouse, maybe travel was really up there, or maybe, you know, high earnings at one point I think was a big goal of mine, but I realized that in order to get high earnings at a corporation, like you really, really have to climb the political ladder, and I just wasn't going to do that or subject myself to that. So the only way I can do high earnings is if I really put my blood, sweat, and tears into Ruby Jade rituals, but also have fun while I'm doing it. And creating a company is kind of like birthing a baby. So you don't just pop out a baby right after you conceive. It takes 9 full months for a baby to fully grow. And so it's the same concept when you're growing a company. It's going to take time before Ruby Jade Rituals grows to what I envision it growing to. So maybe in 5 years, it would be really fun for me to do this again. It would be fun. I guess every year I think it's good to do this for sure. All right. So work life interface is the intersection of work and personal life. There are many aspects of one's personal life that can intersect with work, including family, leisure, and health. Work-life interface is bi-directional. For instance, work can interfere with private life, and private life can interfere with work. And so that is also playing off of this quote here on the slide by Sadhguru. There is no such thing as work-life balance. It is all life. The balance has to be within you. And if you can see the picture on the left, it says yin and yang. And this is a reminder that you have to work with the yin and the yang of life, and that you can't have it all, like we said on the last slide. And you have to also realize that, you have to make an effort in your personal life as much as you have to make an effort in your work life. So it really has to come within. And when you're working, if you want more work-life balance, you have to set boundaries with your employer, like right off the bat. So if you do work in the corporate world and that's your jam, great. But let's say like you just start a new job and they're having you work 30 minutes after the time you're supposed to turn off your laptop. You have every right to set that boundary right off the bat, and it's better to do that then than to wait. Because waiting is kind of like they're just going to feel like they're going to squeeze every inch out of you. And so they've already kind of taken advantage of you. And if you wait to say something or wait to create a boundary, it's really hard to kind of pick up the pieces. So it's better to do it right away. And like this quote is saying, the balance has to be within you. And creating a boundary like that is highly respected in the corporate world, or if you like work in the service industry, you can create boundaries. People that are good leaders are going to respect that, and that's a good company to work for if they do respect it. So we've already talked about this yin and yang concept before, but it is the belief that everyone, whether you're a man or a woman, has both feminine and masculine or dark and light energy, that everyone has weaknesses and strengths, and that it is our duty to be well informed about all these parts of ourselves to live a more balanced life. So there's some great books to read that touch on this same concept, and they are the following: The Power of Now, A New Earth, and The Courage to Be Disliked. And I'm going to put all that in the course notes in this module, so you can maybe purchase those books or go to the library, or maybe one of your family members already has one of these books and you can get their copy and start reading, because it's so important to like really grasp this, that you really have to be the driver in your life. No one else will. No one else is the main actor in your life. It's you. Okay, so I want to talk about two things now. Informational interviews and networking. So informational interviews, they're not on the slide. I'm just going to be talking to you about them here. An informational interview is an informal conversation you can have with someone working in an area of interest to you. It is an effective research tool and is best done after preliminary online research. It is not a job interview, and the objective is not to find job openings. So the benefits of informational interviewing is you get firsthand relevant information about the realities of working within that particular field, industry, or position. You find out about career paths you did not know existed. You get tips and insider knowledge about how to prepare for and land your first career position in this specific industry. You also learn what it's like to work at this specific organization. And, it's also a way to initiate a professional relationship and expand your network of contacts in that specific career field. You'll meet people who may forward job leads to you in the future. Now, you're thinking probably, oh, is this like an internship? And actually, no, it's not. This is just a small conversation that you could have with people that maybe are already working the job that maybe you think you want to do. And after you've done your values auction and you've kind of nailed down what values you really prefer, it's time to network. So that's kind of where we're at right now in the section of this module. And so informational interviews were something that I also learned about at the MU Career Center. And I'm pulling some of this information from another career center in the United States at Berkeley. And it says, you may feel awkward reaching out to people who you don't know. However, most people actually enjoy taking a bit of time out of their day to reflect on their professional life and give advice to someone interested in their field. But remember to always say thank you if people do this. So informational interviews are kind of like a segue into networking. Networking is the other thing I want to talk about, and it is the process of making connections and building relationships. These connections can provide you with advice and context, which can help you make informed career decisions. Networking can even help you find unadvertised jobs and internship. Networking can take place in a group or a one-on-one setting. It's kind of crazy. Like, if you build a good network, you could possibly get a job lead sent to you before it even hits like the company's website, or HR actually begins trying to outsource and fill this role. So networking is huge, and examples of networking include going to a business conference and chatting with like-minded individuals, meeting up with a former colleague for lunch, emailing a client to wish them a happy birthday, having an informal brainstorming session with coworkers at the end of each week. I mean, those to me, like, as a Capricorn rising, sound fun, but it's easy stuff. Like, we don't need to be so formal here because we're not in an interview. We are pre-interview phase. So this can be totally casual, and that's the beauty of it all. And networking, it's good to like kind of go out of your comfort zone and maybe go out of like the company that you're really aiming for. I learned this in my career. No, it was a professional development program at my business school, and they told me you don't want to play in one sandbox. And that's so true. Like, you really don't. You want to open up as many doors as possible to see what you can get. And you'll kind of be amazed when you start going out of your bubble to find, new opportunities. What else is out there? And it might really be surprising to you. So, informational interviews and networking are really, really important to do before you actually start any of the job application process. Right now, your goal is just to learn and to soak up as much information as possible. You're trying to be a sponge. So that's my little story. No, it's not my little story. That is like the curriculum of this slide. It's not on the slide, but I can put more information in the course notes, and you can learn a little bit more about both of those things. But my story for this slide these are actually direct messages I sent to 2 companies that I was interested in maybe working for while I was actually still working at MSG. I was really, really sick the Christmas before COVID. I don't know if I had COVID at the time, but I was like really drained, and actually I had shingles, so it was clear that I was definitely stressed out, and that job stressed me out like so much, and that was a sign that the toxicity was negatively affecting my body. And I remember just being like, I don't know how much longer I can do this job. And this was before COVID. So I had taken some time because I was sick and I had some days off of work to send messages to the Female Warhol and the Pattern to see if maybe I would get a response. These were 2 companies that had like a therapy focus, very empowering companies, and it just felt like a good fit with what I was trying to go for. I was trying to go for companies that really valued mental health and just like bettering yourself. And it's funny because these are 2 companies that were huge inspiration to Ruby Jade Rituals, and I didn't know I was going to create Ruby Jade Rituals at this time. I mean, I created Ruby Jade Rituals about 6 months later, and I was actually in the process of becoming certified as an astrologist. So it was just kind of interesting how I was manifesting at this time. And there was a couple other companies I was interested in as well. I was also really wanting to maybe work at like Headspace. I had used that so much 6 months before when Fitz, my nephew, passed away. So that was like another company that I felt like really aligned with my values. So I leave you with this little message here that manifestation can begin with a single message. And it's very, very true. Networking can begin with sliding into someone's DMs. Even purchasing Rise from the Ashes, you will have access to the class roster, and my idea is that you all will be connected and it will build a community. Oh, sorry, that's New York for you. And when you're in that community of Rise from the Ashes, you'll be able to reach out to others in the course, share your stories of being in the ashes, how it was for you to rise, and what it's like now being a phoenix. So that's a little bit more on networking, and it's so important to network. Something else that I learned while I was in college is it's not about the grades you make, but it's about the hands you shake, and it's so true. So be sure to work on your handshakes, no limp hands, and look that other person in the eye when you do shake their hand. So that's the end of that section of this module. We're going to go ahead and move on to the second section. So we're at the resume, CV, curriculum vitae portion of the course, and it definitely deserves its own section for sure. Now, when I came up with the layout of the course, I purposely put the natal chart before all this professional practical stuff, because my belief was that once we got to know who you were in a more cosmic way, that it would be easier to do all this other stuff. A lot of the time, resume writing is a very daunting task. I do remember while working at the MU Career Center and working with students one-on-one or doing presentations for the outreach team on resumes, there were a lot of feelings where people just looked like that they felt like they couldn't do this or they had nothing to write about. And I think it's similar to kind of writing a research paper. It's kind of like a lot. So you have to realize that when you write a resume or you redesign your resume, you're going to need to come back to it and do it in chunks. And when you take time to really think about your experiences, because you know them best, you will see how it begins to all come together. You will. So before we get into it, let's just share a small fact about recruiters and resumes. Let's chew on this for a little bit. Just like first impressions, resumes are huge. On average, the time spent reading a resume is just 7 seconds, and actually some sources say only 6. Most employers only look at resumes for a few seconds, whether it's 6 or 7, before making a decision to pursue an applicant or not. So that is why a resume is so important. So here are the 5 most important components of your resume. First and foremost, your name. Then formatting. Then your contact information. Then education/experience. And I'm going to pause really quickly and kind of talk about this. But I remember when I was working with recruiters, while I was looking for a job at KPMG, I decided to connect with the recruiter to help me find open positions. And they were really adamant about having my education come first and then my experience. But I had learned at the Career Center, it's kind of up to the individual and whatever the individual is most proud of. So, for instance, if you have spent a lot of time in your education, and so like you've gone and you got like a bachelor's degree or a master's, or you're doing a PhD, yeah, maybe you would have your education come before your experience. But if you're someone that's never gotten a college degree, then why would you put your education before your job experience? There is not one shoe that fits all here. Like, everybody is different. Everybody is on their own journey. Everyone has different obstacles that they need to face throughout life. So some people can't go to college. Some people don't have the funds to do that. So it's kind of wrong for a recruiter to tell someone, no, your education needs to come before your experience. Neither of them are more important than the other. It's all up to the individual. It's all up to you and how you want to lay out your resume. I do think both of them are an important component of a resume. So you need to have either your education or your experience on there, or both. You can't leave either of these out. You have to have both. Or you had to have one of the two. And then finally, transferable skills. And we are going to learn a lot about transferable skills, so don't you worry. Okay, so as you move throughout your career, your resume will change. If you see this little light at the bottom of the slide, I put that on specifically because there are some people, maybe the fixed signs, that don't really like change. I think all the mutable signs are really good with change. But yeah, your resume is going to change. It's going to look different from the time you apply for your first job to the time that you apply for your last job. So it is best to accept this. That way, resume writing is not so daunting. And you don't feel like you can do something like this, because you can do it. You can do this. But what won't change is your transferable skills. Transferable, oh man, I'm struggling. See, I trip up on my words a lot. Transferable skills come with evolution and can be applied to many careers. That is the truth. Okay, so transferable skills. They highlight your strengths. They require you to reflect on your experiences. They allow you to tailor your resume content, and they give you permission to evolve. Okay? I don't know if you've picked up on the theme of this course, but it's all about evolution. So that's why transferable skills are so important, and they deserve their own slide. And if you are confused about what a transferable skill is, please use one of your 3 sessions that you have with me, and we will take a deep dive into what they are, and we will see what your transferable skills are, okay? Good. So here are 2 examples of this, meaning 2 examples of transferable skills that stay the same, and 2 examples of the fact that this is one person with an evoluted, I don't know if that's a word, an evolution of a resume. How about that? We'll say it that way. So yes, these are 2 very different versions of my resume. So different that they have different names at the top. So I don't know if you caught it in my module 2 of the course, The Rise, but my first name is Erin, actually. My notes say LOL, which is kind of true. So early in my career, I was going by my full name, which is Erin Mackenzie Dolan, because I felt like it was confusing for some people, because on my degrees, it does have my full name, and that's the same thing on my birth certificate. But, I realized that it's best to go by the name you feel most comfortable with, and numerology has also taught me that too. And if you're interested in that, book a Ruby Jade numerology session with me. So I switched back to the name I've always gone by, which is my middle nickname, Kenzie. Don't know why my parents called me Erin, because they've always called me Kenzie, so it's just kind of funny. But aside from this, if you just look at the formatting and the white space and the layout and the font and the colors, you're going to see a lot of different differences. However, some of the bullet points where the transferable skills can be found have actually stayed the same. So one of them that's easy to spot is that 20%, and I don't know if you can see it. I believe that your screen is a little bigger than what I'm seeing right now. But that 20% is included in the Bell Style section of my resume. So I highly recommend, before I go into this transferable skill and my experience, I want to bring it back to you. I highly recommend putting numbers into your bullet points, because they really do jump out to the reader. they're easy to spot. I mean, having a number within a bunch of words, it's so much easier to focus on. So whether that is just a number or a percentage, do it. Use your numbers and your bullet points. And to sidebar a little bit about bell style before, I get into this bullet point and these transferable skills, is before Ruby Jade Rituals, Instagram was created and what it is today and now, I was actually using that account to promote the jewelry company Belle Style Bijou. And so if you're curious, like what I was doing on the account before I was doing Ruby Jade Rituals, you can actually see what I was doing here in my resumes. So let's go into the bullet points that are listed in both of these resumes that highlight the transferable skills. So some of them are repeated, and that's when you're going to see that it was a transferable skill. And that's that 20% bullet point. So in both of the resumes, I do have the point that sales increased by 20% from each previous season when I was working with the company. Another bullet point was I created a business network with all 15. I used the number 15 there. Sorority chapters on MU's campus through dinner, speaking, and chapter presentations. I also say in a bullet point I arranged and orchestrated a total of 16. I used the number trunk shows on campus where sales increased by 20% from each previous season. I phrased it in a different way on the second resume, but I used that 20%. I also say I expanded Belle Style's brand awareness and existing in new locations through social media. And then I originated the hashtag and global campaign Be a Belle Style Girl on Instagram. So not all of these bullet points are included on both resumes, but I had a bank to pick from. So when you are writing your resume, make sure you keep one master resume on file or on a jump drive or in your cloud. That way you can easily pull and copy and paste, so it shortens the time in resume writing. You don't want to have to do things twice. You want to work smarter, not harder. Okay, so here are some more tips for writing a resume. Okay, very easy to read. I'm just going to go over them very briefly. So the flow does matter. Where are the eyeballs going? Consistency is key. It's very key. I even use this when developing Rise from the Ashes, PowerPoint. This goes all the way down to the font that you select, to what you're underlining, what you're bolding, what you're italicizing, to the line spacing and the breaks in between words. You want to avoid grammatical errors and spelling typos. That's huge. Like, that's probably should be at the top. But I mean, it's kind of like common sense, but you'd be surprised like how many people don't take the time to read over their resume before they submit it. So get someone to edit and review your resume that's not you. Get another set of eyeballs on it to make sure there are no errors or typos. And if you can find any errors in this course, I'll give you a special treat, because that will take a good eye, and I don't know if there are any errors. I've kind of gone back and corrected anything that I saw when I was taping. So if you find anything, take a picture and message me. I will give you something for free. And then do not use abbreviations. Don't use them. Sometimes some people do not know the abbreviations or the acronyms you use. Always go into drafting your resume with the mentality that everyone is a beginner learner. So for instance, don't use ST or STI or STI ST period for street on your contact info. Just spell the word out, street, STREET, instead. You also always want to begin each bullet point with a past tense action verb. This is extremely important and key, and just something that you need to do and not ask any questions. Why? A past tense verb indicates that you have already attained that skill. So that is why the verb tense is used. That's why past tense verbs are used. There are no ifs, ands, or buts on this subject. This is just the best way to write bullet points. I promise you, you just have to trust me on this one. And then lastly, you want to consider the amount of white space on your resume. So when you have a first glance of your resume, is it looking bare? You have to ask yourself those hard questions before you submit it. If so, maybe you need to put a little more effort into coming up with more bullet points. A good rule of thumb is you should have at least 2 to 3 bullet points per experience. If you don't have the bandwidth to do this and you can only put, let's say, 1 or 2, that's okay. Then you need to play with formatting and increase the font size or bold things to take up that white space. Maybe you need to just add more experiences. So maybe in one section of your resume you have 2 experiences and you have so much white space. Maybe you need to add a 3rd or a 4th experience to fill that resume up to 1 full page. And you want to keep your resume to 1 full page. If you're doing a CV, it's a little bit different, but the rule of thumb is 1 full page, nothing more. No one wants to read longer, like a resume that's longer than 1 page. There's just not enough time. And as we go back to like what I taught you, it's like 5 seconds that they take a look at your resume and decide if they want to call you. Okay, so we are now going to dissect the different sections of one of my resumes. And I'm actually the most proud of this version of my resume because I believe it really does have everything you want in a resume. Some things are not, back up a little bit. Some things here are traditional in this resume, but some things are just very unique to me. And I believe that it's important to do that when you write a resume because you want to set yourself apart from the other candidates. You want to be memorable. And so if it means using a color on your resume or putting the places that you've traveled or like a very interesting quote at the top, something just like little, but a little bit of touch can like really help. And then have the rest of it be structured in a very traditional manner. So, and to talk a little bit more about this particular resume, this is the resume that I used when I looked for another job while working at KPMG. So this is the resume that got me the job at MSG, weirdly enough. And I don't know if that means it's good or bad because I talked so poorly about those experiences. No, I'm just kidding. It's a good resume. I know for a fact that it's well written because I spent a lot of time on it. So when you look at it, we're zooming out. We're looking at it as a whole. It's clean. It has a nice flow to it. Things are easy to read. I'm intentionally directing my reader to the most important points, which are the professional work, experience, and leadership. And I came up with those section titles on my own, and I recommend you to do the same. Remember, you wanna separate yourself from other people. Some other good ones could be like teamwork. So a really important thing to do is just like do something that's unique. And that's like a little touch. Remember, we just need a little touch that's different. And a really good exercise is actually to take the job description of the posting that you're applying to and find keywords and then use those keywords in your resume to grab the reader's attention even more. Okay, I hope you like the spooky vibe of this slide. A little fun fact. I was meant to be born on Halloween, so October 31st, but I was actually 6 days early. So this is my favorite holiday. If you know me, I love this holiday. I think it's great. And funny enough, 6 is my favorite number. So I just wanted to like have a little bit of Kenzie vibe on the Erin Mackenzie Dolan resume dissection. And I put a little bit of, spookiness on the page, but also the evolution of the Scorpio story. So Scorpion, Spider, Snake, Eagle, and the Phoenix. So yeah, please enjoy. But what you should see is that one transition when I moved to the slide that popped right out. It was my name. And so when you're writing your resume, what should pop out first is your name. That should be blinking like flashing lights, like big, bold, like all capital letters, caps locks. Because you're selling yourself with your resume. So your name should be the biggest thing on your resume. I then have my phone number. So if they want to call me, they have it there. Then I have my email for next steps. And finally, my LinkedIn so they can see everything that I've done in my professional life that I couldn't fit on a one-page resume. Next, we go into the meat and potatoes of the resume. In this case, that's the professional and leadership experiences. Both these sections are consistent, meaning that the job title is bolded, italicized. Then I have the company name, the location, and the duration of the time that I stayed at that company. Each bullet point then is beginning with a past tense action verb. As you can see, I'm giving details here, but none of these bullet points are full sentences because they are missing a noun. And since you're talking about only yourself, you won't include I. In fact, keep I, me, my out of your resume. And so there doesn't need to be a period at the end of any of these bullet points. I also include numbers to make readers give a double look or double take, whatever the saying is there. I kind of don't really remember what it is, but you know what I mean. Then I included my education actually at the bottom. So when I was searching for a job in 2018, I had walked 3 years prior. I had gotten my degrees 2 years prior. So I had been out of college for 2 years. So I felt like my experience was more relevant at that time. And it's just the basics. You don't really even need to put your GPA on there. In fact, if you graduated a long time ago, there's no need for it. And if you didn't have a GPA that was above 3.0 or above out of a 4.0 scale, then leave it off. And just remember, C's earn degrees. And then the last part is this thing that's unique about myself. It's a talking point in an interview. It's all the countries that I've traveled to. And I think some of them have changed since then. But at the time, in 2018, this is all the countries that I had been to. And it was trips that I had paid for by myself. So I believed that it was totally aligned with my professional life because I had saved up money and paid for these experiences on my own. So there is a rhyme and a reason for that, that's for sure. Okay, so a well-written resume will set you up for a cover letter and or a LinkedIn profile. I love this sign. I think it's great. You didn't come this far to only come this far. So obviously there's more to do. This is an example of a cover letter that I wrote when I applied for Cafe Mogador, which is the restaurant I serve at today. It was sent in an email with my resume. A lot of the time you want a cover letter to be its own PDF, but this was for a part-time job, so I felt like the more informal, the better. And you just gotta read the room and find the writing on the wall to know how to be strategic. So a cover letter has 4 parts. Part 1, you introduce yourself. Part 2, you talk about your experience. Part 3, you explain how you'd be a good fit at the company if given the chance. And part 4, you will give the reader a call to action and you'll let them know how they can reach you. And I'm going to leave some other examples of cover letters in the course notes so you can read this one, but other ones, and you can kind of help. They can kind of help you draft your cover letter if that's needed for a job application. Now, let's say you do send in a cover letter with a resume, and it's not required, but it's recommended. You are going to be setting yourself up for success. When they say it's recommended, they're really wanting to see who's going to go above and beyond. So you will set yourself apart, and you're probably get an interview. So then this is the LinkedIn profile, and this is actually what my current LinkedIn profile about section is. It is lengthy, but it really tells my story and the evolution of my career path. So take a minute and read through it on how I sell myself online. As you can see, I use third person. I'm using Kenzie a lot in this about section of LinkedIn. And I do this on purpose because think about it. Think about hits online. When you use your name over and over again, it's going to be picked up by the algorithms, and the things that you want to come up in an online search will be at the top. So this is a good idea for everyone, but especially people that have had a bad past haunting them online. Okay, so now you've sent off your resume, you've heard back, and you have an interview. So now what? Well, it's time to prepare more. Yay! Let's do it. Okay, so interviewing is the opportunity to sell yourself, the one person you should know the most. And I think the reason why I love to sell is because it's fun to do, but like when you're really fired up about something, it's very easy to pick up on, and people can feel it, and it's super attractive and magnetic. And fun fact, my parents met on a sales call. So I don't know if that has anything to do with why I do love selling, but maybe it was my destiny. I don't know. However, I've sold a lot of different things, not just myself, like in interviews. And I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about figuratively. But I've sold jewelry in the past. I sell food at the restaurant that I work at, and I obviously sell my services and products. And the sales journey is a very interesting journey, and I compare it to a lot to the sport of fishing. You have to be kind of patient. So what we've done all up until this point has really prepped us for interviewing, and you're kind of already like preparing for the interview when you write your resume and you do your values auction and you create your elevator pitch. So that by the time that you get to this point, you actually should be very well versed in your story. So interviewing is meant for the following. It's meant to share your weaknesses, but to showcase how you use your strengths to overcome them. It's meant to speak about negative work experiences strategically and show how you have a collaborative spirit and a problem-solving mind. to show that you have done your homework and researched the company and prepared questions for the interviewer, and to be an exciting experience. So get into the right frame of mind. Get out of the ashes if need be, and shed all that negativity, because you want to be in a positive headspace beforehand. Remember the story that I was telling you about? I was using my employee assistance program, and I was explaining to the woman on the phone that, KPMG was just like weighing me down. I had all these interviews that I needed to be excited about, but I really just felt like I couldn't be excited. And she challenged me to quit the job because she said it was weighing me down like a wet blanket and it wasn't doing me any good. And that's the same thing that I'm saying here. You need to get that yuckiness like off of you when you want to like impress someone. So like if you're getting like brought down by your current job, and if you've really set yourself up well financially where you can take a couple weeks without getting paid, do it and focus on these interviews. In the long run, it will pay off, and you'll probably do a lot better than the interviews than if you were to stay in that position that's weighing you down. So when you do finally get into the interview, and as you're preparing, a great technique to learn to prepare for interviews is the STAR technique. And STAR stands for the following: S for situation, T for the task, A for action, and R for result. So it's all about telling a story in a very concise way, a digestible way, so people can understand exactly what you did. So you're doing this when you're writing your resume, but when you're actually out loud speaking, you're also going to be doing this. And the best way to organize your thoughts is to use the STAR technique. So the situation, where were you? The task, what were you responsible for? The action, how did you do it? And then result, what resulted, or what did you achieve afterwards or while doing this particular action? And people will be able to follow that. You will prevent rambling, and you'll have more time to get through the interview and ask the questions that you want to ask at the end. And that's a perfect transition into this next slide. Remember, you are also interviewing the company. So in the course notes, you're going to find some top interviewing questions that you should maybe ask next time you are in an interview. And the answers to these questions can sometimes be the signs you're looking for. It can really help you know if it is still worth investing your time in this company. So it's always so important to ask questions. It makes you look good, but it also helps you gain more information, more ammunition. I've talked about that. You're a sponge at the very end. You're looking for ways that will give you a sign of a green flag or a red flag. Like, you want to understand, what this company is going to be doing for you. Like, it's a two-way street. I love this quote by Ernie Johnson Jr. It says, "A lot of the times the interview relies not so much on the interviewee, but on the interviewer." They are also performing here, and they need to impress you. They need to sell you the role. If they're not giving you a job description, red flag. Just remember, this is a tango. All right, so we are in the final section of this course. Each module has 4 sections in it. And here we are at the very end, negotiating and accepting. Let's fucking go. All right, so you nailed the interview. Now it's time to fight for what you want. So put your gear on. It's time to negotiate and accept that offer. All right. So when negotiating a job offer, always ask for more. It's better to go high than low because you'll never get your first ask. They will come down and it will be a compromise. So, also, once you're in the job, you will never get as high as a raise as you did when you first were hired. That is a full-blown fact, people. Always, always, always negotiate. Big bold letters in my notes. You got the offer, congratulations, but hold your horses, don't get your hopes up. It might not be exactly what you want. So you got to advocate for yourself, because what did we learn in Module 1? You and only you will do that. So take time to read over the offer. Print it out, highlight it, use a red pen to underline, and make notes off to the side. Then consolidate everything you discovered while going through the offer and develop questions on what you found, and send those over in an appropriate time frame via email. Paper trail, paper trail, paper trail. You want all of this stuff in writing. It's going to make your case better when you actually negotiate. Make sure to be respectful. After all, they are offering you a career opportunity. But call things out you find concerning. Remember, you're going to be raising a red flag and seeing how people react to it. This is going to give you ammunition. This is going to help you look for the green flags and the red flags. And things that you find unfair, it's okay to disagree. Remember the book that I recommended you to read, Have the Courage to Be Disliked? Not everything is going to be your cup of tea. Not everyone's going to like you in life. So if you think it's unfair, the time to point it out is now, not later. It goes back to stop, drop, and roll, or negating the toxicity before it turns into a wildfire and it's too late. So once you send the questions in a very professional manner, then set up a meeting to negotiate. In between the time you send that email to the time the meeting begins, practice, practice, practice. You got to practice your pitch. It's not your elevator pitch anymore. It's your negotiation pitch. Practice makes perfect. If that means looking at yourself in the mirror and building that confidence when you go into that meeting that you're worth every penny, then do that. Mirror work is transformational, and it's a skill that I learned in CBBS. So if you need a little guidance on how to begin that exercise, we will focus on that in your sessions with me. Then when you're in that meeting, you're going to negotiate with confidence, and they're going to be impressed. And lastly, be willing to sacrifice or completely walk away from the offer, because maybe there's a better offer out there, and maybe this is not your door, and this door doesn't open for you. That's okay. That's all about finding your way home, and that's something that I talk a lot about in Ruby Jade Astrotherapy and on my website. So go up and never stop. The worst they can do is say no, which is not even that bad. And the likelihood of them taking the offer off the table is very, very low. So don't worry about that. And if they did that, that would be a huge red flag, and you would be kind of dodging a bullet. It is your right to negotiate. All right. So now that you've negotiated, you might be a little exhausted, and that's completely normal. So take time to accept the offer. Within 7 days, you should finally accept or decline. And whether you accept or decline, be sure to thank everyone that helps you along the way. Thank every single person in the interview process. And maybe your interview process is lengthy, where you interviewed with maybe like 8 to 10 people. I mean, that happened with me at MSG, but I made sure that I thanked every single person. You know, handwritten notes are the best, but now with email and LinkedIn and even like text messaging, that can work as well. Whether that thank you helps you strengthen your network or builds rapport within the company you're about to work in, you will actually be thanking yourself. You showed appreciation, and it will be remembered, and it will set you apart from others. So, in order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix must first burn. And this is a quote by Octavia E. Butler. So I'm wondering if you realize that we're at the end of Rise from the Ashes. You've officially completed the core curriculum, the 3 modules of this course. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all outside these modules and being there as your accountability coach and certified astrologist to embody all 3 stages of the Rise from the Ashes process. I mean, it has been such an incredible experience to guide you through the ashes, the rise, and the phoenix, because I know that this works. And I'm sure you're feeling it too. I'm sure you're feeling better about your situation, your future, and just yourself. So give yourself a pat on the back, a big hug. Look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're so proud of yourself because you have done a lot of amazing fucking work. And you totally deserve a round of applause. So, congratulations. And I cannot wait to hear your success stories. Love you all. I really, really mean it. Thank you so much for purchasing Rise from the Ashes. I know that it's going to pay off for you. I really do. Your investment is worth it.